Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, hundreds of feet above the ocean, looking down at a tiny village that seems to have been carved directly into the rock face. Colorful houses stacked on top of each other, fishing boats below, not a tour bus in sight. These places exist right now, all across Europe, and most people have never even heard of them. One of the villages we're covering today doesn't appear in a single major travel guide, and it might be the most beautiful place on the continent. In this video, you're going to discover 12 of Europe's most dramatic and breathtaking coastal villages, places so stunning they almost don't look real. This channel is dedicated to the hidden gems, the unseen wonders, and the luxury escapes that most travelers simply walk past. So if you're someone who wants to go beyond the obvious, beyond the postcards, you're in exactly the right place. Let's start the countdown. Number 12. Cudillero, Spain, Asturias, northern Spain. Most people think of Spain and picture sandy beaches, hot sun, flamenco, but there's a corner of northern Spain that looks nothing like that, and it's absolutely extraordinary. Cudillero is built into a narrow gorge that opens directly onto the Cantabrian Sea. The houses climb the hillside in tiers, painted in yellows, reds, and whites, each one perched just slightly above the next, like seats in a theater looking out over the water. It's a working fishing village, the kind where the morning catch still comes in before dawn, and the smell of fresh seafood drifts through the narrow lanes by mid-morning. What makes Cudillero so special is how undiscovered it still feels. This is Asturias, one of the least visited regions in all of Spain, and Cudillero is its crown jewel. You can walk the whole village in an hour, eat the best grilled octopus of your life, and genuinely feel like you found something most tourists completely missed. Can you imagine stumbling onto a place like this by accident? And if Cudillero surprised you, the next village on our list sits at the edge of the world in a way that will genuinely stop you in your tracks. Number 11. Manarola, Italy. Cinque Terre, Liguria. Yes, you may have seen photos of Cinque Terre, but here's the thing. There's a reason it keeps showing up. Some places are famous because they genuinely deserve to be. Manarola is the most dramatic of the 5 Cinque Terre villages. It sits on a rocky promontory that juts out into the deep blue Ligurian Sea, and the buildings, painted in terracotta, amber, and sage green, rise almost vertically from the coastline. At golden hour, the light catches the water below and turns the whole scene into something that looks more like a painting than a real place. There are no beaches here, just ancient rocks, wild water, and centuries of fishing history. But here's the detail that most visitors don't know. The best view of Manarola isn't from inside the village, it's from the footpath above it, just before sunset, when the last light hits the cliff face and the whole village seems to glow. Most people miss it because they don't stay long enough. Stay long enough today, because coming up at number 10, we're heading to a village so remote and so raw that even experienced travelers are often stunned they hadn't heard of it. Number 10, Hallstatt, Austria. Salzkammergut, region. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Hallstatt isn't coastal, it's lakeside. But hear me out. Hallstatt sits on the edge of a glacially carved lake in the Austrian Alps, surrounded by towering mountain walls on 3 sides. The water is so still and so clear that the entire village reflects perfectly in its surface, creating a mirror image that looks completely surreal. The village itself is incredibly narrow, barely 100 meters wide in places, squeezed between the mountain and the lake. The houses overhang the water. The streets are barely wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side, and above the rooftops, sheer cliff faces rise hundreds of meters into the sky. This is one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in the world. Thousands of years of history in a place that fits on a postcard. Here's a practical tip. Visit in the very early morning before the first tourist boats arrive. For about 30 minutes, you'll have the whole thing to yourself. Hallstatt in the early mist, before anyone else is awake. It's genuinely one of the most beautiful sights in all of Europe. But we're just getting started. At number 9, we're moving to the far west of the continent, to a place where the Atlantic hits the land so hard, it carved a village right into the cliff top. Number 9, Nazaré, Portugal. Silver Coast, central Portugal. Nazaré is unlike anywhere else on this list. It's a town of two halves, the lower town, right on the beach, and the upper town, sitting on a cliff top 400 feet above the sea. The cliff is so dramatic that there's a funicular railway connecting the two, and from the top, you look down at one of the longest beaches in Europe, stretching out below you in a perfect golden arc. But that's not what Nazaré is famous for. Nazaré is home to the biggest waves ever surfed by a human being. The underwater canyon just offshore Funnel's Atlantic swells into monsters, waves that regularly reach 20, 30, even 40 meters high in winter. The largest wave ever surfed was caught here, by one person. Alone. Standing on that cliff top in November, watching a wave the size of a 10-story building move toward shore, it is one of the most genuinely awe-inspiring things you can witness in Europe. And in summer, it transforms into a completely different place. Calm water, colorful fishing boats, women in traditional black shawls drying fish on the beach. The contrast between the two seasons is almost hard to believe. If raw, natural power leaves you speechless, just wait. Because at number 8, we're going somewhere where the drama is quieter, more intimate, and honestly, even more enchanting. Number 8, Portofino, Italy. Ligurian Riviera. There are few places in the world that feel as effortlessly beautiful as Portofino. This tiny harbor village on the Italian Riviera wraps around a perfect horseshoe bay, lined with pastel-colored villas and luxury yachts bobbing gently in the turquoise water. The hills behind it are covered in dense Mediterranean pine, and the whole scene is framed by a backdrop of rolling green headland. It's small, incredibly small. You can walk the entire village in about 20 minutes, and yet it has this quality that's very hard to describe. A kind of concentrated, almost suspended elegance. Like time moves slightly differently here. Most visitors come for a few hours on a day trip from Genoa, but the people who actually understand Portofino stay overnight. When the day trippers leave and the village becomes this quiet, luminous, magical little corner of the world. Sitting at a table at the harbor's edge in the evening, with a glass of local white wine and the last light fading behind the hills, this is the kind of travel memory you never let go of. And speaking of memories that stay with you, number 7 is a place that most Europeans have never been to, and it might just be Europe's greatest secret. Number 7, Piran, Slovenia, Adriatic coast. Let's talk about Slovenia for a moment, because this tiny country, sandwiched between Italy and Croatia, has just 27 miles of coastline. 27 miles. And sitting on that coastline is one of the most perfectly preserved medieval towns in all of Europe. Piran is a peninsula town, meaning it's surrounded by the Adriatic Sea on 3 sides. The old city walls still stand. The Venetian Gothic architecture is intact. The cathedral on the hilltop looks out over rooftops that have barely changed in 500 years. Walking through Piran feels like walking through a Venetian dream that somehow escaped the crowds. The narrow streets twist and open unexpectedly onto little squares. Salt-scented breezes come in from every direction, and the light on the water has this particular silver quality that photographers go absolutely wild for. The local seafood is outstanding. The wine from the nearby karst region is exceptional. And on a warm evening, when the town lights reflect in the harbor and the church bells ring, you will genuinely wonder why more people don't know about this place. That's the thing about Europe's coastline. The more you explore it, the more it gives you. And right now, we're at the halfway point, which means the most spectacular discoveries are still ahead. Alright, pause for just a second. If you're already mentally booking flights, I completely understand. But here's what I want you to know. The villages we've covered so far are genuinely beautiful. But the top 6, and especially the top 3, are on a completely different level. We're talking about places that are harder to reach, more dramatic, more remote, and more unforgettable. One of them is only accessible by boat. One of them sits so high above the sea that the clouds sometimes fall below the rooftops. And the village at number 1, I genuinely believe it is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now is a great time. We find places like this every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get back to the countdown. Number 6, Vernazza, Italy. Cinque Terre, Liguria. We're returning to Cinque Terre because if Manarola captured your attention, Vernazza is going to take your breath away. Where Manarola is all about the drama of the cliff face, Vernazza is about intimacy. It has a tiny natural harbor, one of the only ones along the entire Cinque Terre coastline, and the village curves around it in a way that feels almost protective, like it's cradling the water. The main square opens directly onto the harbor. You sit at an outdoor table a few feet from the sea and fishing boats drift past while locals go about their day. Above the harbor, a medieval watchtower stands on the headland, and the climb to the top gives you what many serious photographers consider the best single viewpoint in all of Cinque Terre. The village below you, the harbor, the wild Ligurian sea stretching to the horizon. It's a scene that stops even the most seasoned travelers cold. What separates Vernazza from the other Cinque Terre villages is the feeling of it. It has a lived-in warmth, a community feel. The restaurants are family-run, the wine is local, and the welcome is genuine. But if you think Vernazza is dramatic, number 5 is going to raise the bar considerably. We're heading somewhere so remote that the only way to reach it, even today, requires a boat. Number 5. Fjelland, Norway. Sogn og Fjordane, Western Norway. Forget everything you think you know about coastal villages for a moment. Fjelland sits at the end of a long, narrow fjord in western Norway, completely surrounded by water, mountains, and one of Europe's largest glaciers. There are no roads connecting it to the outside world, or rather, there was no road until 1986. For most of its history, the only way in or out was by boat. Even today, arriving by ferry feels like the right way to approach it. You come around a bend in the fjord and the village appears. A handful of old wooden houses, a white church, apple orchards in bloom in spring, glacier-capped peaks soaring above. The scale of the landscape makes the village look tiny, delicate, almost impossibly placed. Fjelland is known as Norway's book town. Dozens of second-hand bookshops operate on the honor system, where you browse, pick what you want, and leave the money in a box. Somehow, this system of complete trust feels perfectly in keeping with the mood of the place. On a clear day, the reflection of the glacier in the still fjord water is one of the most otherworldly sights in all of Europe. Cold, serene, ancient, and impossibly beautiful. But wait, we're not done with dramatic landscapes. At number 4, we're heading somewhere that feels like the edge of the world itself. Number 4, Bonifacio, France. Southern Corsica. If there is a village in Europe that looks most like it was placed there by a film director, it might be Bonifacio. The old citadel of Bonifacio sits on top of a narrow limestone promontory on the very southern tip of Corsica. Not just near the cliff, on it. The buildings at the edge of the upper town literally overhang the sheer white cliff face, which drops nearly 200 meters straight down into the impossibly turquoise waters of the Strait of Bonifacio below. Approaching Bonifacio by boat is one of the great arrival experiences in Europe. You sail through a narrow channel into the harbor, enclosed by cliff walls on both sides, the old town hanging above you like something from a medieval illustration. It genuinely looks like a fortress city from a fantasy novel. And then you climb up into the old town itself, through stairways carved into the rock, past houses that have stood for 1,000 years, and you walk out to the very edge of the cliff, and you look down, and the drop below you is so sheer and so dramatic that most people instinctively step back. The natural swimming just outside the harbor is some of the best in all of France. The seafood is extraordinary, and the sunsets from the cliff edge looking back across towards Sardinia are the kind of thing people plan return trips around. We're now into the top 3, and from this point forward, everything escalates. Number 3, Amalfi, Italy. Amalfi Coast, Campania. There's a reason the Amalfi Coast is protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And Amalfi, the town itself, sits at the heart of it. Amalfi is tucked into a deep ravine where the mountains collapse into the Tyrrhenian Sea. The town fans outward from the base of the valley in tiers. White buildings with blue and yellow-tiled domes, ancient stone stairways climbing the cliffs, lemon groves terraced into every available hillside, and the cathedral standing in the main piazza with a staircase so steep and so beautiful, it feels ceremonial just to climb it. The drama here is vertical. Look up and you see cliff faces rising 400 meters above the rooftops. Look down from the winding coastal road above and you see the town compressed into its valley, the harbor, the sea, all of it laid out like a carefully arranged jewel. The drive along the Amalfi Coast to reach the town, on a road barely wide enough for a bus carved into the cliff face with the sea far below, is terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely magnificent. Early morning in Amalfi, before the boats arrive, when the fishermen are still out, and the cathedral bells echo off the cliff walls, is one of the most alive sensory experiences you can have in Europe. The smell of salt water, fresh espresso, and lemon blossoms all at once. It sounds like too much, and somehow it is exactly enough. 2 villages left, and the final 2 are, in their own very different ways, the most extraordinary places on this entire list. Number 2, Positano, Italy. Amalfi Coast, Campania. Positano is the village that made the Amalfi Coast famous, and it earns every single word of its reputation. It cascades down a near vertical cliff face in a way that almost defies logic. Pink and white and terracotta houses stacked on top of each other, connected by hundreds of steep stone steps, all of it tumbling down toward a small beach and a harbor of multicolored fishing boats. John Steinbeck wrote about Positano in 1953, and he said, "Positano bites deep. It is a dream place that isn't quite real when you are there and becomes beckoningly real after you have gone." More than 70 years later, it is still exactly that. The light in Positano is something photographers return for again and again. The way it hits the tiled domes and the whitewashed walls and the bougainvillea cascading over every terrace in the late afternoon. The entire cliff face turns warm gold and pink, and it looks, genuinely, like a painting made of light. Staying in Positano means accepting that every restaurant, every shop, every walk requires you to either climb or descend dozens of steps. And somehow this physical intimacy with the place, the effort it takes, makes every arrival feel earned and every view feel like a reward. There are people who visit Positano once and spend the rest of their lives trying to get back. You deserve to be one of those people. And now, the village that tops our list today. The place I genuinely believe deserves to be called the most dramatic coastal village in Europe. A place so perfectly, almost impossibly beautiful, that it feels like it was dreamed up rather than built. Number 1. Merovigli, Santorini, Greece Caldera Rim, Santorini. No, let's go somewhere truly unexpected. Number 1, Moher Cliffs Village? No, let's go truly dramatic and unexpected. Number 1, Merovigli, Santorini, Greece. Caldera Rim, Santorini. Most people know Oia, and Oia is beautiful, but the village that sits above it all, literally above it, is a different experience entirely. Merovigli sits at the highest point of Santorini's Caldera Rim, nearly 300 meters above the sea. And from here, the view doesn't just include the caldera, it commands it. Below you, the caldera drops away into the deepest, most impossibly electric blue water you have ever seen. The crater walls are layered in black and red and gold volcanic rock. The sea inside is so calm, it looks like polished glass. And directly across the caldera, Oia and the famous windmills are just small white shapes on the rim, because from Merovigli, you are looking down on them. The village itself is small and unhurried, far fewer visitors than Oia. The restaurants here have wider caldera views than anywhere else on the island. The infinity pools, where the water appears to fall directly into the caldera below, are some of the most photographed in the world. And yet the village maintains an almost monastic quietness. Waking up here before sunrise is something that rewires your understanding of beauty. The sky goes from deep purple to coral to burning orange, and the caldera slowly fills with light from below, and the white buildings around you glow, and you stand there, alone on your terrace above the clouds, and you genuinely wonder how a place like this can exist. This is not a bucket list destination. This is the destination that makes you realize what bucket lists are actually for. If you've made it to this moment in the video, you're the kind of traveler who understands that the real ones, the truly extraordinary places, are worth finding. These 12 villages, from the hidden cliffs of Asturias to the volcanic heights of Santorini, are proof that Europe's coastline is still full of places that can genuinely stop your heart. They are the kinds of places that turn a simple trip to Europe into a story you'll tell for the rest of your life. Now, I want to hear from you. Which one of these villages would you most want to wake up in tomorrow morning? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love seeing where your imagination takes you. If this video gave you that feeling, that restless, beautiful urge to go somewhere extraordinary, then subscribe to this channel. We find places like this every week. Hidden gems, unseen wonders, and the kind of escapes that most travelers never discover. And when you're done here, the next video is waiting for you. Europe's most spectacular mountain villages, perched so high above the clouds that the views from the top will leave you absolutely speechless. Go find your next adventure, it's out there waiting for you.